That within the U.S. government, there are forces wholly beyond democratic control. These forces are more powerful than the elected officials that supposedly oversee them. These forces can affect election outcomes. They can even hide their complicity in the murder of an American president. In other words, they can do pretty much anything they want.
I watch Tucker Carlson every single night, and I'm sitting there, like, watching the show, and here Tucker does this open monologue, and then, of course, writes an opinion piece here in Fox News about how, yes, the CIA has culpability in killing JFK, and that the government, including many Republican administrations, have been complicit in hiding that information from you. Now, Tucker Carlson wrote about this at Fox News. Tucker Carlson did a full segment, his entire monologue yesterday, on the CIA's assassination, allegedly, of JFK. What? I mean, we've heard about this. We've studied this, and I wanted to lead the show off today because I've gone to the grassy knoll a couple times. I've read a couple books on this. It is the dodgiest thing that I think has happened in modern American history. A lot of the stuff that they've done to presidents afterward have been out in the open. Like, for instance, we know that the deep state was involved in the takedown of Nixon. We know that the deep state was involved in the takedown of Donald Trump. We're aware of deep state meddling inside of the administrations of other presidents, the threatening, the corrosive nature of this unelected, largesse bureaucracy that exists wholly outside of American law and American principle, that has undue pressure or complete and total leverage over our elected officials. It's a very dark, sinister situation that happens, so much so that the guy who was in charge of winning World War II, Ike Eisenhower, General Eisenhower, commander of D-Day and all Allied forces in Europe, when he became president, one of his parting quotes leaving office is, there's something really going wrong inside of the deep state, something very sinister inside of our government. He was shocked to find out what the CIA and what the intel agencies were up to, or not, right? To find out that they existed in a total black box outside of government purview or democratic purview. And so many administrations have come up and crashed up against this permanent Washington, this permanent edifice that exists, again, outside of a republic responsibility to have checks and balances over it. Famously, Chuck Schumer said, the intelligence agencies have 7 ways to Sunday of getting back at Donald Trump if he goes against them. And man, do they have secrets to protect. Tucker Carlson going in yesterday on his show, just essentially starting off, top of the bat, top of the box, takes the wood and just swings and goes, crack! Yes, the CIA killed Kennedy. Watch.
We decided to find out. We spoke to someone who had access to these still hidden CIA documents, a person who was deeply familiar with what they contain. We asked this person directly, did the CIA have a hand in the murder of John F. Kennedy, an American president? And here's the reply we received verbatim. Quote, the answer is yes. I believe they were involved. It's a whole different country from what we thought it was. It's all fake. It's hard to imagine a more jarring response than that. Again, this is not a, quote, conspiracy theorist that we spoke to. Not even close. This is someone with direct knowledge of the information that once again is being withheld from the American public. And the answer we received was unequivocal. Yes, the CIA was involved in the assassination of the president.
So that's Tucker Carlson speaking with a CIA source that has overlooked the documents on the killing of JFK. Now, of course, the killing of JFK is something that has gone down in conspiracy theory lore. And the reason why is because it seems utterly implausible that one guy, for absolutely no reason at all, would be able to fire off shots with magical bullets that go in multiple different directions all over the vehicle, that shoot JFK's head and he goes backwards. It doesn't make any sense, right? We're not going to get into all the physics of it here. You can find a million videos on that. Maybe we'll make one ourselves. But the killing of JFK and the assassination of JFK and the evidence of JFK's killing makes absolutely no sense. They weren't counting on the Zapruder film. They weren't counting on somebody actually filming this exact moment where we could go back historically and watch and see how curious it is. Again, Anyone who knows just basic ballistics or just basic laws of physics, when you get shot from the back, your head, that's not the way it's going to work. The exit wound, for instance, on John F. Kennedy's head is in the back of his head. That's how a bullet works, right? It enters somewhere, and then the exit wound, the shrapnel, the bullet blows up, and then the shrapnel blows out. And the back of his head is what was blown out. Not to get too graphic here, but you've probably all seen the footage in history class. It's a well-known piece of footage. You could literally watch it. So there's many questions about what was going on. Of course, multiple shooters means a conspiracy. So who were the other shooters? Who were the other people involved? The curious case of JFK's assassination, of course, stems from the immediate protection of JFK's body, the immediate federal overreach and grabbing of all of the evidence, and then the holding of that evidence, presumably forever, right? So the government is under, essentially, a rule and a law that requires them to release evidence out to the public. You can FOIA evidence from the federal government. You can request evidence from the federal government. There are rules and statutes about federal government property being open and released to the public, depending on its security clearances. Everybody involved in the Kennedy assassination or any decisions made around that, they're all dead by now. This happened 60 years ago. All those people are gone. And so why not release the evidence? I think because we all know why. Because they haven't been telling you the full story. And as Tucker Carlson's source just said there, everything you think you know about your federal government is a lie. Tucker Carlson summed it up like this on his show yesterday.
Now, some people will not be surprised to hear that. They suspected it all along. But no matter how you feel about or what you thought about the Kennedy assassination, pause to consider what this means. It means that within the U.S. government, there are forces wholly beyond democratic control. These forces are more powerful than the elected officials that supposedly oversee them. These forces can affect election outcomes. They can even hide their complicity in the murder of an American president. In other words, they can do pretty much anything they want. They constitute a government within a government, mocking by their very existence the idea of democracy. As cynical as we have become after 30 years of watching government officials ignore the voters who employ them, we were shocked to learn this. It's not acceptable. Americans have trusted their government less with every passing year since the killing of John F. Kennedy. Maybe this is why. And people have known this for a long time. The people who knew would include every director of the CIA since November of 1963. And that list would include Obama's CIA director, John Brennan, one of the most sinister and dishonest figures in American life. That list would also include, we are sad to say, our friend Mike Pompeo.
Mike Pompeo wouldn't go on Tucker Carlson's show. Mike Pompeo was too much of a coward. He was CIA director, and he didn't release these documents. So what is going on here? Tucker Carlson lays it all out right now in a, on your screen, opinion piece at Fox News. Tucker Carlson doing the bravest reporting in America. Real journalism is supposed to question everything, be skeptics. There is no such thing as a conspiracy theory. There are simply questions and skepticism. And so when you watch JFK's head get blown out from the back, and when you see in his throat a bullet wound right here, go check out the autopsy photos, even the ones that they doctored. When you see the bullet entry point right here in his throat, and when you see his head go out from the back, and when they tell you that Lee Harvey Oswald was behind him in a school book depository with a bolt-action rifle, and that 20 bullets riddled the car, and a bolt-action rifle, the fastest gunman in the world, and nobody is claiming that Lee Harvey Oswald was a good shot. Lee Harvey Oswald was curiously in communist Cuba. Lee Harvey Oswald had connections to the CIA. Many argue and document that he was CIA trained himself. Why was Lee Harvey Oswald in communist Cuba? Days before, why do you have to re-enter America through Mexico? This doesn't make any sense. Like days before the killing of JFK. Why did Lee Harvey Oswald always say that he was a patsy? Why was Lee Harvey Oswald killed by a known mafia gangster before he was ever able to take the stand and tell people what he knew, Jack Ruby? These are real questions, and it's okay to ask them. In fact, being a skeptic is your job inside of a republic. It's how this whole country operates. We are skeptical. The reason you have it in America is because the colonists were very skeptical about this guy named King George. They thought that he probably didn't have their best interests in mind, was probably lying to them, and was probably hurting their chances to know the truth, to live a free life. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is found in questioning the powerful, questioning that which exists around you. That's what Christ did. Jesus Christ came to this earth to question the powerful and to question the rules and the structures of society as it were. He kicked them down. It is good to be a skeptic. And so it's important to look at the footage and to say, what the hell is going on here? Of course there were multiple shooters. This is how physics works. Maybe Lee Harvey Oswald did fire off a couple shots from the Texas School Book Depository. I'm not arguing that. But what I'm telling you is that when you look at the Zapruder film, you can see that JFK's head was blown out from the back. Simple physics prove that that means he was shot from the front. At the very physical realities of the universe level. Okay? So that means two shooters, and that means that there was a conspiracy. And that means the government isn't telling you the truth. And Tucker Carlson says so here. By the way, there's also Zapruder himself said that, hey, we heard shots from the grassy. We heard shots coming from essentially a very different spot. Everybody who was there at the time, you can see it on the film. Everyone goes running toward the shooter to try and stop the shooter. Where did they run to? No one ran to the Texas School Book Depository. They ran to the grassy knoll. You can go see it right now in Dallas. It's all still there. Check it out for yourself. Why are they hiding it? That's the real question. Why do they hide? What are they hiding? Tucker Carlson begins with the murder of Jack Ruby in this article right here on Fox. We're going to read you some of the most important parts of it. Not long after Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald on camera in the basement of the Dallas police headquarters, a lot of Americans started to have some questions about the Kennedy assassination. It was, you'd have to admit, pretty extraordinary sequence of events. A lone gunman murders the president of the United States, and then less than 48 hours later, the lone gunman himself is murdered by another lone gunman. Huh! Interesting. It's almost like the lone wolf continues to this very day. If you go ahead and check out many sequences of events in this country. What are the odds of that, Tucker writes? It's one thing, you get struck by lightning, rare if possible, but then another member of your family gets struck by lightning, all on different days. You might begin to suspect that these are not entirely natural events, or God just hates you. But replied the U.S. government, they are. This bizarre chain of killings was entirely natural. So, less than a year after the JFK assassination, the Johnson White House released something called the Warren Commission Report. The report concluded that while their motives remain unclear, Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby acted alone. No one helped them. Many Americans did move on. At the time, they had no idea how shoddy and corrupt the Warren Commission was. It would be nearly 50 years before the CIA admitted, under duress, in fact, that it had withheld information from investigators about the relationship with Lee Harvey Oswald. Oh, the CIA has a relationship with Lee Harvey Oswald? Did you learn that in history books? It's true. The CIA admitted it. Now today, of course, the term conspiracy theory appears pretty much everywhere. New York Times, about American politics. Pretty much in every New York Times story about American politics. Forgive me, I read too fast. But despite 60 years of name-calling, those questions have not disappeared. And here's one of them. In April 1964, a psychiatrist named Louis John West visited Jack Ruby in isolation in his Dallas cell. According to West's written assessment, he found that Jack Ruby was technically insane and needed immediate psychiatric hospitalization. Those are conclusions that, puzzlingly, no one had spoken with Jack Ruby previously had reached. Ruby had seemed perfectly sane to the people who knew him. Louis Joylson West, the psychiatrist, pronounced him crazy. But what West did not say was that he was working for the CIA at the time. Huh? Wait, the CIA is sending a psychiatrist in to essentially diagnose Jack Ruby? West was a contracted psychiatrist for the spy agency. He was also an expert on mind control and a prominent player in the now infamous MK Ultra program in which the CIA gave powerful psychiatric drugs to Americans without their knowledge. So of all the psychiatrists in the world, what in the world was this guy doing with Jack Ruby in his prison cell? The media did not seem interested in finding out. In fact, New York Times, in an extensive 1999 obituary of West, never mentioned the fact that he had worked for the CIA, much less his time with Jack Ruby's cell, which seems very relevant. In 1976, a long forgotten, the House Representatives impaneled a special committee to investigate the JFK assassination. Their bipartisan conclusion? Jack Kennedy was almost certainly murdered as a result of a conspiracy. But the question of a conspiracy of whom? The obvious suspect would be the CIA. Why else would the agency withhold critical evidence from investigators? In 1992, Congress passed the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act. That act mandated the full disclosure of all documents by 2017, 54 years after JFK was killed. The last administration promised to comply fully with the law, but under intense pressure from CIA Director Mike Pompeo, withheld in the end thousands of pages of CIA documents. Thanks, Mike. Really glad you're going to be running for president against Donald Trump, Mike. Please come on our show. Let us ask you about this. Why would Mike Pompeo withhold these documents from you, ladies and gentlemen? Presumably you voted for Trump, maybe once, maybe twice. Maybe you intend on voting for Trump a third time. This is a question you should ask Donald Trump. You should ask people who are in his administration this. Why didn't you release the CIA files on the killing of JFK? This afternoon, the Biden administration did exactly the same thing. That would be thousands of pages of documents after nearly 60 years, the death of every single person involved, but we still can't see the CIA documents on the JFK killing. Well, today we decided to find out. We spoke with somebody who had access to the hidden CIA documents on JFK's killing. The person who's deeply familiar with these documents, high-level official, we asked them, did the CIA have a hand in the murder of John F. Kennedy? The reply we received verbatim. Here's a quote. The answer is yes. The CIA was involved in the killing of Kennedy. It's a wholly different country from what we thought it was. It's all fake. It's hard to imagine a more jarring response. And again, this is not a conspiracy theorist that we spoke to. Not even close. This is somebody with direct knowledge of the information that is being withheld from the American public. And the answer we received is unequivocal. Yes, the CIA is involved in the assassination of the president. Why? Well, you could look back and see what John Kennedy thought of the CIA. John Kennedy said, and I quote, he wants to rip that organization to the bone. John Kennedy wanted to defund, change leaderships at the CIA and the FBI. John Kennedy went direct. John Kennedy himself, a veteran and a member of Congress, previously, before running for president, had seen the black box funding that goes to American intelligence sources, had said this is utterly undemocratic. We are going to democratize these organizations. We are going to rip the hearts out of them, and we are going to reveal anything that is criminal to the public. We are also going to make sure that they have open transparency inside these organizations. And me, John Kennedy, very popular guy. We're going to put someone on the moon. John Kennedy, who had a real grind against Richard Nixon, very close race there against Richard Nixon in 1960. 1963, John Kennedy was cruising on his way to a massive electoral victory in 64. John Kennedy, of course, had traveled to Texas. The setup here was that President Johnson had demanded he travel to Texas. This was a last-minute stop. Vice President Johnson, forgive me, at the time. Vice President Johnson, not popular, hated by the Kennedys, was shoved in the dock. This was back when Texas was a blue state, Democrat state, and you had to essentially win Texas in order to win the nomination. You needed someone like Johnson, who's a complete scumbag. So Lyndon Baines Johnson is forcing JFK to come to Dallas. In fact, the last city that he went to before he was killed was Tampa. That's why there's a Kennedy Boulevard here in Tampa. Last place he went to was Tampa, Florida. Had a totally nice time here and was welcomed and was greeted. And JFK goes to Dallas, where LBJ essentially controls the police forces, controls the detectives, controls the state troopers, controls the avenues and the areas that JFK would be traveling with. And JFK and LBJ, of course, wouldn't take off, wouldn't be sworn in until JFK's body was on Air Force One. There are so many strange things that happened in this, in this assassination. But ladies and gentlemen, time after time after time, the clear-eyed people that look at what occurred with the JFK assassination come to always the same conclusion. The official story is impossible. Thus, there must be a criminal conspiracy afoot. Was it the communists from Cuba? JFK, no friend of the Cubans. Lee Harvey Oswald had been in Cuba. Was it the mafia? JFK's brother, Robert Kennedy, who was the attorney general at the time, was really cracking down on mafia activity. This was a huge thing at the time. Made a lot of enemies there. Was it the deep state who was running all of them? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I suppose our federal government will never let us know. We're going to have to ask, the man upstairs when we get to heaven. But this is what Tucker Carlson is asking. Americans have trusted their government, reading to you back from the article, Americans have trusted their government less and less with each passing year since the killing of JFK. Maybe this is why. And people have known for a long time that the people who now include every director of the CIA since November 1963, and that list would include Obama's CIA director, John Brennan, one of the most sinister and dishonest figures in American lives. The CIA has lied to you, withheld from you, kept documents from you, kept the truth from you. Was it the CIA that did this? Sure like to know. Donald Trump could have released the documents, should have released the documents. We should know. And quite frankly, sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. This is the rule. You cannot have a republic. You cannot have a functional democracy, if this is what you want to call it. We certainly don't live in a democracy. We live inside a democratic republic. But you cannot have any functional system of government without truth. You cannot have reconciliation without truth. Nelson Mandela says so. We must have an agreed upon narrative. And right now, the official narrative of the federal government and our intel agencies is that one crazed dude killed Kennedy from a Texas school book depository with a bolt-action rifle, that it is physically impossible to get the shot off that killed Kennedy. Just physically impossible. That's what the government will tell you. So if you need evidence that the government lies to you, there it is. There it is. I happen to know a lot about this topic. I really, really am interested in it. I go to Dallas and whenever I go to Dallas, I just stand there and look around. Stand there and look around. This might have been one of my red pill moments when somebody put The Texas Connection, an incredible book, in my hands when I was a teenager, and said, "Read it. It'll change your entire it'll change your entire perspective on the government." What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. I want to know in the comment section. What do you think? What happened here? Who was behind it? JFK did have a ton of enemies. Was it the deep state? Was it the communists from Cuba? Was it the mafia? Jack Ruby had mafia ties? Or were all these people set up in order to make it look like it was something else? And the real operators were inside of our own federal government. Thank you for watching. Our channel is here to meme the libs until they cry and then to meme them crying. Their tears taste like ice cream. We ridicule the establishment, and we do so because of you. Your support keeps us going. So if you liked what you saw, please click the thumbs up. Please punch, subscribe, and ring the bell to let you know when we have a new video. Don't you want us to let you know when we're live? Please check out more of our videos here and sign up for our mailing list in case something happens and the plug gets pulled. We want to be able to keep in touch with you. My name is Benny Johnson, and thank you for watching. Based Patriots, stay free.